Okay, welcome to the Community Engaged Project Grant and Make Art Grant application walkthrough for the October 2nd, 2023 RISCA grant deadline. I'm gonna really simply walk through the two applications from start to finish, as well as some other information as we go. It's a pretty small group today. Feel free to drop questions in the chat or unmute yourselves and ask questions. Just do keep in mind that those questions will be in the recording, which is good, right? If you have the questions, then other folks have the questions as well. And I'll also be asking if anybody has questions a lot of times along the way. This is for y'all, so please ask whatever questions you have, particularly ones that you think might be helpful to other folks. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we're just going to look at a bunch of applications, look at the RISCA website and the application. So give me a second to get all set up there. Okay, so here we are on the RISCA homepage. You can all see that, right? I've successfully shared my screen. Yes? No?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. Resounding silence. All right, so this is RISCA's website. And so the easiest way to navigate to these grants is just to click grants here, our grants. And here's a whole list of all of the grants we offer, as well as the portals. So as you may or may not know, we have two separate application portals, one for the individual grants and one for organizational grants. And I'll show you how to tell the difference once you're in the portal. But for now, know that this is going to be a really easy way. As you see, have it bookmarked as well. So here we are for individual artists, and the grants that are currently open for artists are the Community Engaged Project Grants and Make Art Grants that we're going to talk about today. We also have Folk and Traditional Arts Apprenticeships, Folk and Traditional Arts Fellowships. Those have deadlines of September 15th. And if you're interested in those, you'll want to reach out to my colleague, Elena Calderon-Patino. And then also, if you work in education, we have project grants in education for individuals, which is sneaky. The application there is through the organization's portal. But if you're working with distinct groups of learners, so a class in sequential learning for multiple contact hours, you might want to, in a dedicated learning environment, such as a classroom, you might want to look at the project grants in education. But today we're just going to look at Make Art and Community Engaged Project Grants. So we'll take a look here first. We'll start with Make Art Grant. So here is the page with all of the guidelines. So you can, in addition to reading all of the guidelines here on this page, you can also download a PDF of the guidelines over here. Download the PDF of the application, the Excel spreadsheet that is the required budget template, and the Excel spreadsheet that is the required timeline template can all be found here, as well as in the application. Here again is a link to the online application. Here's me on a day when I actually put clothes on for headshots, you know. So you can email me here. You can also just click this button, make an appointment. It takes you to my Calendly page, which is to set up a one-on-one appointment to talk about specific questions you have. That's all via Zoom or phone. Then if we go down here, we have some on-demand resources, but here's another one, sign up for support sessions. That will take you to our Eventbrite collection, which includes these walkthroughs and includes the in-person and remote grant info sessions. That's all of our grants. But also it includes things like our last minute grant support drop-in hours or grant support drop-in on Zoom, which is just time that's sort of open and free for y'all to come in and ask questions or get advice. So here are the grant guidelines. The Make Art Grant provides grants of up to $3,000 for artists to create or continue artwork in any discipline. You have to be working on a specific project with specific goals that you'll work towards within those 6 months. However, you don't have to finish the project in that time. You can phase it to be sort of what you'll do in the next 6 months of the project. And we'll see that when I walk us through a sample application. This is open to projects of all arts disciplines: music, writing, visual art, film and video, multidisciplinary work, performance, pretty much anything. If you can imagine it and call it art, it's art, right? You do have to be working outside of the support and structure of a nonprofit. This means if you're performing at the Fringe Festival with Wilbury, the Wilbury puts on, this grant is not for you. It does not, because that is a project of an organization and it comes with the support and structures of that. However, if you're renting space in AS220's Black Box or a studio space somewhere, and they're not presenting you, they're not providing marketing, they're not paying you, then even if they're donating the space, then it's still not a project of AS220, it's a project of yours. And if you have questions, if you get like into writing your grant and you're like, ooh, I'm not sure, please just reach out via email or sign up for one of those 30-minute meetings with me and we'll talk through it. So I've decided I'm ready to apply. So I'm going to proceed to the online application. And that's going to take me directly to the grant portal. So one thing I want to flag is that you can set the language here. Again, it's just using Google Translate, and I will remind you that your grant application itself does need to be in English for the panel to be able to read it. However, you can look at the questions in whatever language you need. So I said that both of our grant portals look exactly the same, and I'll show you how to see the difference. So you want to make sure this says, welcome to the Rhode Island State Council on the Arts grant portal for individuals. If you're on the organization's grant portal, which looks exactly the same, right? It will say grant portal for organizations. So that's how you can tell. And they're completely separate systems. So if you have an account on the individuals, you will not automatically have an account in organizations. So that trips people up all the time on the regular. So I'm gonna go ahead and sign in because I already have an account. And again, you can just click the create new account, or if you've forgotten your password, there's a forgot your password. It's really easy to reset. If you are struggling to reset your password or having other issues, again, you can email me. So once you've logged in, you should get here to the applicant dashboard. So this is what this looks like. I have 2 active requests. That means these are still in process, and a whole bunch of historical requests that I didn't actually submit because I'm not eligible to receive RISCA grants. The easiest way so how you're gonna apply for a grant is you're just gonna come up here and click apply. So this is a list of all of the grant applications that are currently open in this portal. So again, Folk Arts Apprenticeship, Folk Arts Fellowship, Make Art Grant, Community Engaged Project Grant, and then the Artist Open Studio Tours Grant, which we won't talk about today. So as you can see, they have this blue apply button. So that's how you would start an application. Here you can see that there's not a blue apply button. And when I hover over it, it says I already have a request for this in process. That's because I've already started this grant application. You can only submit 1 grant application per program. So this is helping prevent me from starting a new application. So I'm going to click apply. Oh, and it says I already have a request in progress. If I wish to start a new request, click apply below. Don't do that. You can only submit 1. Or I'm just going to go to the existing request. So if you're starting a new application, you'll just come up there, apply, hit the blue apply button. If you have one in draft that you're working on, so you don't have to finish it all in one go, you can save it and work on it in little bits and pieces. You're gonna come down here, you'll see it. I have a community engaged project grant in draft, and I have a Make Art grant in draft. So we're gonna work on the Make Art grant first. So I'm just gonna come here and click Edit Application, and that will bring me to the application. This is exactly what it'll look like on your end. So this contact info is the same contact info you use to register for Foundant. And we'll scroll down to the actual application. So here at the very top, again, you have links to all of those things that I said you would need. This is the grant guidelines if you need to see those again. The budget template and the timeline template, which are in Excel, and you are required to use these templates. And then the evaluation rubric, which is the rubric that the panelists are using to score your application. So this is how the decisions are made. So the first section of the grant is eligibility. These are really basic yes or no questions. You got to be careful because they will trip you up though. So US residency. You must be a legal resident of the United States with a tax ID number, either a social security number or an individual taxpayer identification number. So I am, so I have clicked yes, and I am still eligible. The next piece is Rhode Island residency. You have to have lived in Rhode Island for at least 1 year at the, at the time of application. This means your home in Rhode Island is your primary residence, and it's the address that you use for legal forms, car registration, driver's license or state issued ID, and voter registration, regardless of whether you own or rent your home. So I have lived in Rhode Island for at least 1 year, so I clicked yes, and I'm going to move forward on this eligibility quiz. The next piece is, are you 18 years of age or older? And I sure am. So I clicked yes. And the next question is, are you currently enrolled in an arts degree seeking program or attending high school full-time? An arts degree seeking program is not like you're taking a course in welding at the steel yard. It would be if you're enrolled in a degree seeking program at Community College of Rhode Island, getting your associate's degree in photography, that would count because even if you're only taking one class a semester, you're enrolled in a degree seeking program that's arts related. So it's anything that's arts related. If you're getting a degree in engineering, you're fine, you're eligible. If you're getting a degree in anything that's arts related, including arts business, you are not currently eligible until you are done with school. And this includes all levels as long as it is a degree seeking program, so associates through PhD. If you are enrolled in an education program, even if it's arts, well, maybe not arts education, but education is fine because that's not an arts related degree seeking program. So folks, if you're getting a degree in education, you're all good, you're eligible. Then this piece that I touched on earlier. So I'm not currently enrolled in an arts degree seeking program. I have enough of those so far, I think. So I've clicked no. Then the next piece is this project initiated and organized by an artist? So this project must not be a project of a nonprofit or an organization, must not be receiving direct funding from another RISCA grant or an organization receiving general operating support from RISCA during the funding period. So that would include things like a performance at PVD Fest, right? That one of those organizations receives general operating support. That program is already supported by RISCA. Does that make sense, y'all? Awesome. Okay, and this project is initiated and organized by an artist, so I've clicked yes. So that's just the eligibility to make sure that you are eligible to receive this grant. And that's the easiest part of the application, hopefully. All right, the next piece is some basic information about you and about the grant, the project. So first, you're going to enter your preferred name. We ask you to register in Foundant using your legal name that will be on your W-9 that we'll use to pay you. Preferred name can be the name that you go by and that you might be known by in the artist community. It might be the same as your legal name, it might not. Then we have pronouns. Both of these are optional. You do not have to answer these questions. Pronouns. So I've entered she, her, which are my pronouns. If you're curious about what this is and why it matters, there's a link explaining that. Again, this is an optional question. The next piece is the project name. So these next two questions, the project name and the project summary, will end up being publicly available, right? So these are the sort of name and short summary that, for example, will go in the big spreadsheet of all the grants we've awarded at the end of a grant cycle that goes on our website. It will go in our council book that goes to council members when they're voting on the applications. So you want to make sure the project name and project summary explain very briefly what you're doing to someone who might not read the rest of the application. Is sort of a teaser to just be like, this is what this is. So this project that I've written this sample, and again, this is a completely fictional project, fictional project, grant application that I've written just to be a sort of demonstration. So you'll never see this project. So this project is called Viewpoints and Climate Change. And then the project summary, which is really short, just description of what it is at its core. So Name Namerson, Nombre Namington, and Noma Naminator will work towards creation of a new site-specific performance piece. The three artists will use viewpoints, a technique that uses improvisation and observation within time and space for ensembles to create work together to create a piece around the theme of climate change and flooding. So this has some important pieces in it, right? It has the names of the three artists who are collaborating, has what they're doing, creating a new site-specific performance piece. And because this grant is going to be an application to support the process of creation, it also talks about what process these artists will use and gives a little explanation, because Viewpoints is not a super well-known process for creation outside of the theater world. So a little explanation of what Viewpoints is, and then what the project is about. So we're making this piece, we're using viewpoints, it's going to be about climate change and flooding. And then the next piece, which I recommend not filling out until you created your budget, is the amount requested. One change from grants of old is that for this grant program and the Community Engaged Project Grant Program, there will not be any partial grants. So if you apply for $2,500, like I have here, you'll either receive that amount of money or you will not receive the grant. So just know going in, you're either going to get it or you're going to not. So you can just ask for exactly what you need. There's no partial grants. Questions so far? Okay. So this next piece is narrative questions. So something that's a little bit new as well is that you can submit your answers to the narrative questions in one of three ways. You can write them as I have here and as is done traditionally in a grant application, or you can also have an audio or video recording. These audio or video recordings need to be unedited and need to be just you answering the questions. Please keep in mind that there are strict time limits on those answers. And if your submission is over that time limit, I will send it back to you. So keep in mind, no edits, don't slip in a sizzle reel or any work samples. It's just you talking about the project, answering these questions in the same way you would as if you were writing, you're just speaking. Okay, so the first question, and the way that you would submit those is you would upload them to YouTube or Vimeo and then just put the link in here to the YouTube or video or Vimeo, and you can password protect that. Make sure you put the password in. You can make it unlisted or however you'd like to protect your privacy. Just the panelists need to be able to watch it. All right. So the first question is the project description. Describe what the project is, when and where it is happening, and who is involved in the project. So it's basically a slightly expanded project summary. So just more detail about exactly what you're going to do. And you'll see that this is a little bit repetitive based on the project summary. Again, the project summary that we looked at earlier goes into the public record. So here's my project description. Name Namerson, Nombre Namington, and Noma Naminator will work towards creation of a new site-specific performance piece. The three artists will spend time together developing work and experimenting using viewpoints, a technique that uses improvisation and observation within time and space for ensembles to create work together. The artists will work around a theme of climate change and flooding, with a long-term plan being to perform this piece at Salty Brine State Beach in Rhode Island. During this period of creation, the three artists will create a framework for the performance and an outline of the script. For 3 months, the three artists will meet weekly for 3 hours. These rehearsals and planning sessions will alternate between experimenting and creating material at Salty Brines Beach and planning and scripting sessions in a dance studio. Outside of time together, each artist will spend time researching climate change and flooding impacts in Rhode Island. So this is a very sort of journalistic piece, right? It just really gets into what you're actually doing here. So we know what the long-term goal is, which is a performance piece about climate change and flooding performed at Salty Brine State Beach. We know exactly what these artists are going to do in this time frame. So this seems to be phase 1 of this project, right? They're not getting done with a performance. They're not doing anything publicly. They're simply creating a framework and an outline of the script together in this time. And we know exactly how they're going to do it. They're going to meet weekly for 3 hours for 3 months. And alternate between in the studio and externally at Salty Brine. So it's really clear, legible to an audience that is not necessarily already know what viewpoints is, and doesn't already know deeply what specific performance forms are, because you want to remember that the panelists reading these, they'll all be folks involved in the arts in some way, but they may not be experts in your very specific kind of art. We do our best to recruit diverse panelists, and that means diversity in subject matter expertise as well as all of the other ways. But it's not possible within a panel of 5 people to get experts on everything. All right. So the second narrative question is impact. Why is this project important to you as an artist and person? How will it move your artistic practice or the business supporting your artistic practice forward? So here's my answer. Climate change is a crisis that is particularly pressing in a state with so much shoreline. This project will enable the 3 of us to use art making and performance to think about this imminent and slow-moving disaster in a place that will be deeply impacted. So this talks about the subject matter and why the subject matter is important to the 3 of us as artists, right? Why these artists are doing this work about this thing in this time. The second part is, this grant will also enable all 3 artists to set aside time to experiment and create, which will deepen our artistic practice, allow us to learn and use new techniques, and lead to a much stronger final performance piece. Spending time in development together is something typically not afforded as we create new work, and will allow us to deepen our collaboration, increase our artistic skills, and try new things without the pressure of immediate perfection. It also enables us to create a language and process as we work together, which will last through all future collaborations and co-creations. So this talks about why, so this answer sort of has 2 pieces, right? This specific answer, why this topic, and then what the impact of this grant will do for these artists, how it will move their artistic practice forward, which is that these artists will be able to set aside time to experiment and create that they wouldn't normally in a normal production process that's supported by a grant. And it will further their ability to collaborate moving forward because they will have built these sort of building blocks of collaboration and language using viewpoints. Okay. And the final narrative question, yep, just three narrative questions. The final of the 3 narrative questions is defining success. Describe what a successful project looks like to you and your collaborators and how you will measure that. What are your goals and what do you hope to learn? And keep in mind that we do not expect you to spend a large amount of time or funds on evaluation. We recommend thinking about what success is for you and then figuring out what things indicate that. So, defining success for this project. We will have a framework of the performance and an outline of a script by the end of this development phase. That is a really specific measure of success. This is like exactly what we will accomplish and what we'll have completed at the end. Other measures of success for the 3 of us include learning how to use viewpoints as a method for creating new work, creating strong and open communication and collaboration between the 3 of us, and to have thrown ourselves into experimentation, embracing some failures as part of the process. We hope to create a process for moving this specific work forward to completion, but also a way of working that we can use in future collaborations and if and when additional creators join in specific projects. Success looks like the 3 artists feeling safe to experiment and create, push their artistry forward, and creating an engaging and interesting performance. So one of the things I want to point out here is that this definition of success has 2 aspects. It has a very concrete output of the framework of the performance and the outline of the script will be done. But then it also has some squishier pieces about learning to use viewpoints, creating strong and open communication and collaboration, being able to experiment. So you're not only looking at quantitative, like specific outputs, you also want to think about what you're hoping to learn, how you're hoping to grow as an artist, right? This is a grant to make art, so we care about the human and the artist side, not just the output side. And that's reflected in the evaluation rubric. Okay, I'm going to pause. Questions about the narrative section of the Make Art grant? Okay, there's still time. You're not cut off. You can ask more questions later. Okay, then we have the planning and logistics space, and this is where the timeline and the budget that I talked about come up. So I'm going to show you what the timeline looks like. So this is a very simple timeline because it's a very simple project, right? It doesn't have to be some huge, massive document with every single tiny detail figured out, right? You're just presenting a plan. And because this project is really just rehearsing to create, it's really specific about that between July 15th and October 15th, there will be weekly rehearsals, all the artists, and it's 3 hours a week. In that same time span, everybody is going to be doing research on their own. And then there's a sort of final meeting to figure out what the next phase of the project is. So a little wrap up so we know what's moving forward. And that's it. It's a very simple timeline. Yours might be more complicated or it might not. It really depends on the project. But this is a good starting point. All right, and here is the budget. And I will also say that at the moment we have in the chat, I am dropping in a YouTube playlist of all of our grant support videos. This YouTube playlist includes a video that is only about how to create this budget, how to fill out this budget template for a community engaged project or a Make Art grant. So it's the same budget form for both grant programs. So it has 2 sections. It has revenue, which is money coming in, and it has expenses, which is money going out. For a lot of the Make Art grant and community engaged project grants, the only money coming in that you'll have is the RISCA grant. That's totally fine. You might have other money coming in. You might have a grant from the Interlace Grant Fund or a McCall Johnson, or you might be teaching some workshops. You might have other funds coming in. That's fine. We're not jealous funders. We want you to get money to be making your work, right? But so it's going to vary, and there's not a right or wrong way to do it. For this project, because of where it's at in the process, the only money coming in is the RISCA request amount. So I have put $2,500 here, which is how much I put in the amount requested. So then we're going to look at the expenses side. So this is payment to applicant. So pay yourself for your work. Your time is valuable. Your expertise is valuable. That's why it's first. So in this grant, the lead applicant is paying themselves $750. And over here in the notes, this says, and it's a little hard to read, but it says 3 hours of rehearsal, 1 hour of solo work per week for 12 weeks, total of 48 hours. So that's how it explains like what that amount of money is covering, and it's 48 hours of work by the applicant. Then we have, for this grant, outside artistic fees, $1,500. So it's the stipend for the 2 other artists because it's a 3-person collaboration. Everybody's getting paid the same. Again, stipend for 2 other artists, total of 48 hours of time each. And then the only other line item I have for this grant is materials and supplies. So this is planning and rehearsal supplies like large paper, Sharpies, props, etc. One thing I want to say about creating your budget is that you're making your best guess. This is just a plan. You don't need to go to Staples and price out every single thing you're going to use and write it down to the cent, right? You're just making your best guess. Don't spend 20 hours on this. And then we also know that particularly in art making, not everything goes exactly to your original plan, right? Stuff happens, things change. That's okay. We'll ask you if you get the grant, we'll ask you at the end how it went and what you actually spent the money on. So as long as it's clear that you spent your money in the spirit of the grant application, you're fine. Don't stress about it. We know stuff happens. Again, there's a more detailed video on how to fill out this budget form in the YouTube playlist. So that's those 2 pieces. So then we're asking for a list of in-kind donations. You may or may not have any, and it's fine if you don't. In this case, for this project, I have imagined that 1031 Studios, which is down the street from me on Roosevelt in Pawtucket, is donating rehearsal space because we're using rehearsal space in a time that they're not using it for their projects. So they've donated rehearsal space of total of 18 hours. We don't have to assign an amount. We're just saying this is what the in-kind donation is. And then what would the RISCA grant funds be used for? So for a lot of y'all, it will be this exact answer or something like it. There's no other money coming in. So everything in the budget is what we're using the money for. And so my answer simply says, since we currently have no outside funds for this project, the RISCA grant will cover all expenses noted in the budget. And you can just write something like that. If you do have revenue coming in from other places, you'll just say, hey, I'm going to use the RISCA grant funds for materials and supplies, or I'm going to use the RISCA grant funds for artist stipends. You're just giving your best guess about what line items you're going to use it for. And then finally, we just want to make sure you understand that RISCA funds cannot be used for capital projects, fundraising expenses, prizes and awards, alcohol and some hospitality expenses, expenses outside of the award period, re-granting, undergraduate or graduate school activities, religious activities, and private functions. There is a description of what all of these things are and what they mean in the grant guidelines. And then again, you can also always ask me if you have any questions. All right, questions about those planning and logistics pieces?
I just have one question around, for example, artist stipends and then the fact.
Lily, I see you've unmuted yourself, but I'm not hearing anything.
Okay, can you hear me? You're not hearing me?
I cannot hear you. Will you put your question in the chat?
Yeah.
Oh, is it me?
Can anyone else hear me? Okay. I'll still put it.
So I have no idea why it's happening that y'all can hear her and I can't.
Okay, that's good. Now they can hear you. All right.
Okay, so the question is, if you have 3 artists as part of a grant and only 2 are identified by name when you apply, is that okay? Yes, absolutely it is. You'll just want to mention that somewhere in the application, one artist yet to be identified, they will be a visual artist specializing in watercolor. You'll want to say something like that. But yes, that's totally fine. Yes. Any other questions? All right. Keep on plugging along. So the next and final section of this grant application is support materials. So the first piece is a link to the artist website if it's available. If you do not have a website, that is fine. Do not stress about it. It's just like an extra added bonus if you do have one so the panelists can poke around if they want to. Don't worry about it if you don't. About half of the applications we see don't have websites. No stressing. Then the next piece is we're going to ask for up to 10 support materials. These are not required. I strongly recommend you include at least 5. And these are items that you're attaching that help tell the story of you and your art making and the project you're going to be working on. So there are things like resumes and CVs, work samples of past work. If you're picking up something that's already in process, maybe some process shots or video or script drafts, etc. Things like letters of support from community members or project partners, any marketing collateral from from past projects. It's really going to be specific about the project you're submitting. So since we've all gone through this climate change and viewpoints application, I'm going to show you what support materials I would recommend. So the first piece is a support material list. And this is very simply just a list of the items that you're including in your support materials numbered. And it looks just like this. So it is really just a list of each thing. If I was submitting, you can see here that this is a link to a video dance theater piece, a past performance by Naaman Emerson, who's the lead applicant on this. So again, you want to just have like a little bit of explanation about what the panelists are looking at, so they have the context. Feel free to write 2 or 3 sentences. It doesn't need to be this short in your support materials list, but you do need this list. And then all these files would be uploaded as attachments. I haven't actually made all of the support materials for my fake project, but this is what I would include here, which is the first thing is the resume of the lead applicant, Naaman Emerson. Support material 2 would be the resume and website of the collaborator. the first collaborator, nombre, Namington. Support material 3 would be the resume and website of the collaborator, nome, naminator. So those are the first 3, are just information about the 3 artists. Support material 4 is a letter of support from 1031 Studios. As you remember, they are donating rehearsal space. So this is just a letter saying, yes, we are actually donating rehearsal space. This helps with your likelihood of success and feasibility score, because it says like, yes, there's been some planning. Yes, things are happening. Support material 5 is a link to a video of dance performance piece. And then I've just put the link to the video that doesn't actually exist right there. Support material 6 is information about Salty Brine Beach, because doing a piece about climate change on a beach is meaningful. So talking about why that would be and the history of that beach. Here's a letter of support from the State Department of Parks and Recreation with permission to use the beach for rehearsals. That probably is not necessary to actually use the beach, because that beach is public access land. But it's always nice to have stuff like that, particularly when you're doing something a little bit weird in a public space, to have something that says like, yes, we're allowed to be here, we're official, but not required. And then I've only uploaded 7 support materials. So you are not required to use all 10, but you can use all 10. And then there's a question, what if your website shows your work? Do you need to submit support material? You don't need to, but I would highly recommend it. If you're just submitting a website, you can't curate it at all. You're not, you don't know what things the panel is going to look at and what they're not going to. Whereas if you put it in support material, the panel will definitely be looking at that specific piece. So if you're saying, like, I want the panel to look at this specific video and it's on my website, you can do the direct link from your website in here as support material. But I would say, yes, you want to use the support material to direct the panelists to specific pieces of work samples or resume or information. Those can be links back to your website, but it should be in there. You opened an application and could not input into the budget. Just sign up for a Calendly meeting with me and we'll figure it out. I got you, don't worry. Yeah, if you have budget problems, I will say that particularly in about the 2 weeks before the application is due, the work that I do mostly in those Calendly meetings is mostly supporting folks with budgets. So if it's like really intimidating, or if you're really confused by it, you're not alone, and I will help you fill it out line by line. This is something that I do multiple times a day in the days leading up to the application. Can you assume that local theaters are continually funded by RISCA? Not all of them are, but the larger ones are in our general operating support for artists program, yes. So if they're presenting you or presenting a reading or something, then it's not going to be eligible. But if you're just using their space and they're not doing marketing or paying you or presenting in that way, then it's still your project. So we can talk about that, about the specifics of that. Okay, and then the last part is just who are your elected officials. This is actually an NEA required piece so that we can report to them and they can report to the federal level elected representatives that they are funding in every single congressional district in the country, which they are. So I've selected the congressional district that I live in, and that's the larger congressional districts at the federal level. So it's either Seth Magaziner or an empty spot right now, which is where I live. And then assurances. This piece is really just saying that you are telling the truth, that this is all your work and it's real. So then one more really important part. So I've done all of this work and I don't want to submit it. I want to come back later. I'm going to make sure I hit save application. and it will take me to this confirmation. My application has been saved, and then I can hit continue. So you want to, if you're working in the grant application, go all the way down to the bottom and hit that save application relatively regularly, in the same way that you would save a Word document relatively regularly, just so you don't lose it all. Because if you just navigate away without hitting that button, it will be gone. And then the other one that's important is submit application. The grant system turns off at 11:59 p.m. on the deadline date, which is October 2nd this year. So please, please don't be hitting submit till 11:58. Do it at least 11:50, y'all, because if you're late, you're late. The system turns off. There's no exceptions, and I will be asleep. I won't be here to help. Okay. So that's Make Art Grant. Questions about the Make Art Grant more generally, or the application, before we get into community engaged project grants. And since I seem to not be able to hear y'all, if you could put them in the chat. Okay. So I'm going to move on to community engaged project grants. Feel free to just drop questions in the chat if you would like to. That's totally fine. I'll get to them, I promise. And you can also always email me or book an appointment with me. So I showed you where to find the Make Art Grant. So we're going to go right back here to the homepage of RISCA and again to our grants. And here we are. We're going to look at the Community Engaged Project Grant. So the Community Engaged Project Grant, so everything else is the same, right? The guidelines are here, the questions are here. Here's me, here's making an appointment. So I won't go over that in detail. So the Community Engaged Project Grant is also up to $3,000. The difference is that it's not about the artist or the creation of artwork. It's about arts and culture projects that directly and actively engage Rhode Island residents. So this means that there's some active two-way engagement in creating work, experiencing work, learning about art in an interactive way, not going to an art gallery and viewing pieces, or going to a theater and viewing a piece of theater. It's interactive and engaging in some way. These are grants, again, of up to $3,000, and the same restrictions that they have to be artist initiated. So again, we have all of these same pieces here. And I'm going to proceed to the online application. It will take me again to the login. And I'm going to log in with my non-RISCA email. So here we are again with the same dashboard, and I'm going to look for my community engaged project grant application, and I'm going to go right here and click edit application. And again, at the top, we have the links to the grant guidelines, the evaluation rubric, and the budget template and timeline template in Excel. Those budget and timeline templates are exactly the same as they were for the Make Art Grant. It's the same template for both programs. And again, we have the same application eligibility quiz: US residency, Rhode Island residency, 18 years of age or older, arts degree seeking program, project initiated and organized by an artist. And there's an additional eligibility screener question on this one because it is a grant for a public project. So these CEPG projects, not the creation of them, but the actual project itself, must be occurring in an ADA compliant location. You can see more about what that means here on this checklist from the NEA. If you have questions about that, please contact me. Okay. So we have the same basic information, preferred name, pronouns, again, what this is and why it matters. And here we get into it, the project name and the project summary. So in the same way, these were public information in the last grant, they are here too. So the name of this project is Making Days at the Library. And the project summary is Name Namerson will lead weekly art making days at the Central Library in Warwick for youth ages 8 to 12. These making days will include gentle instruction, a wide variety of materials, and space to imagine. These classes will be in the afternoons and free to all participants and their caregivers. So again, this is a really quick and to the point summary. It's art making at the library for youth and their caregivers. It's free and it's relatively open with space to imagine. The amount requested is $2,000. That will match what's in the budget. So just like Make Art Grant, the 3 narrative questions, you can submit the answers written in the way that I did and is historically and traditionally used in a grant application. You can also submit them using an audio or video recording. Again, it's just you talking, no sizzle reels, no work samples slipped in there, no heavy editing, and please adhere to the length requirements, limits that are in the question. Otherwise, you will get your application bounced back. Okay, project description. Describe what the project is, when and where it is happening, and who is involved in this project. I will lead weekly art making days at the Central Library in Warwick for youth ages 8 to 12. These making days will include gentle instruction, a wide variety of materials, and space to imagine. I am an experienced teaching artist that works to activate youth to create based on their own imaginations. Each week will focus on a different material, and we'll start with some instruction on how to use the medium. Then there will be an imagination prompt to start the creation process. I will then move around the room, helping with the participants as they need. At the end of the 2-hour session, we will spend 15 minutes sharing our creations. These classes will be in the afternoons and free to all participants and their caregivers. All materials and supplies will be provided, and each class will stand alone, so participants can come to one or all of the sessions. So this gives us all of the sort of who, what, when, where, right? It's going to be at Central Library in Warwick. It's going to be for youth ages 8 to 12. I tell you sort of an overview of exactly what each session is going to be and how it's going to work. I say that I'm an experienced teaching artist and what I do specifically, working to activate youth to create based on their own imaginations. All right. And the next question is who it's for and why. So describe the community or group of people you are creating this with and why it is relevant and important to that community. Be sure to include demographics and geography of your intended audience. So here's my answer, and then I'll talk a little bit more about it. My answer is Warwick's Library is a welcoming space for residents of both the town and surrounding areas. This project is designed for youth ages 8 to 12 and their caregivers, which includes a wide diversity of people. Often, youth at this age experience art either as audience members or creating specific final products with little room for imagination and experimentation. This project enables young people to create what they want with support and participation from their caregiver and a qualified facilitator. Warwick's demographics show a small city with a primarily white population with a median income of $73,757 and a poverty rate of 6.2%. Due to Warwick's proximity to Providence, the majority of opportunities for arts experiences include traveling to Providence rather than embedded in their community. So there's a lot of stuff happening in a very little amount of space there. So this is saying where it's going to happen and why. So it's in a library that's a welcoming space, right? It feels open and accessible, and there's little barrier to entry. It talks a little bit about the specific demographic that this is made for. which is youth ages 8 to 12 and their caregivers, likely from Warwick and areas in close proximity to Warwick. It says why this project is important to that group of people. Youth this age experience art as either audience members or creating specific final projects. This enables young people to create what they want. So it's saying this is who it's for, and this is why it's relevant to that group of people. And then I have a little bit of demographic information about Warwick. You don't have to get as specific as I did here. Your project might not be specific to a specific geographical area like this one is. So depending on who the community or group of people you're creating this with and for, it may be geographic community, it might not. In this case, it is because it's specifically in Warwick for a specific reason. And that is because I explain it here, so folks don't have to travel to Providence for their arts experiences, right? There's nothing wrong with traveling to Providence. There's nothing wrong with arts experiences happening in Providence. I'm just justifying it a little bit. The demographic data that is there, I found by Googling Warwick, Rhode Island demographics. So it's also, you're not going to need a big lift. There's demographic information that's relatively easy to find just by a quick Google search. Okay, any questions? All right. So the next narrative, the next and final narrative question again is defining success. So describe what a successful project looks like to you and your collaborators and how you will measure that. Please think beyond numbers of attendees and post-event surveys, and keep in mind that we do not expect you to spend a large amount of time or funds on evaluation. We recommend thinking about what success is for you and then figuring out what things indicate that. So this is a very short answer. For a successful project, I will hold 10 2-hour-long sessions, 1 a week for 10 weeks. I hope to have a minimum of 5 youth participants in each session, though can support up to 15. Success for this project includes the youth feeling engaged and creative and empowered to use their imaginations. This will be primarily measured by observation, both of the participants during each session and their creations. I will also ask for a feedback using a survey for both youth and their caregivers at the end of the 10 weeks. So this, like my defining success answer for the Make Art grant, has both those really specific hard outputs. There's going to be 10 sessions once a week for 10 weeks. And success for this project is having a minimum of 5 youth participants in each of those sessions. Then there's some squishier stuff about the youth feeling engaged and creative and empowered. Then I'm going to measure that mostly by observation, which particularly for a $3,000 grant is a valid method of measurement, right? You can tell as an experienced teaching artist if it's going well or if it's not going well. And then again, I'm going to use a quick post-event survey for both youth and their caregivers. So that is the narrative section of the community engaged project grant. And I'll pause briefly for questions before we get into the planning and logistics. Alrighty. So again, this timeline and budget, they're the exact same templates as we used for the Make Art grant. They'll look a little bit different because it's a pretty different project. So here is the timeline for this one, and it includes logistics and planning. And I say confirm dates, prepare marketing, work with the library, and plan specific curriculum. And then in the next month, I'm also going to be working on logistics and planning, gathering the necessary materials, and marketing and outreach. So this just gives the panel an idea of what you're going to be doing when, and they can see here that this person knows what it takes logistically to create a 10-week series at a library, right? That it does take marketing, it does take planning ahead of time. And then From September through December, we have running the events weekly every Monday from 3 to 5 p.m. And then I've included the evaluation piece that I mentioned in the application. December, we'll be doing the evaluation. I'll have participants complete a survey, talk with the library staff, and then think about successes and what could go better next time. So hopefully this experienced teaching artist will run a program similar to this next time, and they'll do a better job at it because you always learn and get better, right? All right. And then here's the budget. Again, it's the exact same timeline. This has these making days at the library are free, so there's no tuition or class or workshop fees. If there is, and it's fine if you do charge, you would put that right here in this line, other tuition, class workshop fees. So, but for this project, the only money coming in is the RISCA amount. And then again, very simple money going out. It's simply $1,500 payment to the applicant. And then I say what it is, 5 hours per week for 10 weeks, 50 hours a week. Again, that's a pretty common 1-to-1 plus travel time recipe that I've used to estimate the hours. So the sessions are 2 hours. I think it will take 2 hours to prep and 1 hour to travel. So each session takes 5 hours per week. And then again, I have materials and supplies, $500. And again, I'm just guessing and saying generally what it will be. I didn't make a specific exact list with specific exact prices, which is fine. This is just your plan. So art supplies, including paper, paint, colored pencils, and sculptural materials. And that's it. And again, in-kind donations, very simple. The space is being donated by Central Library in Warwick, though they're not donating anything other than space. They're not presenting this, they're not marketing it, they're not paying me in any way. It's just, I'm just using donated space. And then again, what would the RISCA grant funds be used for? Again, there's not any other funds coming in, so it's everything that's in the budget, which is what I've said here. These same restrictions on this funding, these restrictions come from the National Endowment for the Arts. And again, they're explained more. There's more explanation in the grant guidelines of what this means. And then again, support materials. The support materials are, it's the same format, up to 10, including the link to your website if you would like, but again, not required. So support materials for this project are going to be pretty different than the Make Art Days, but also similar. And again, we have the support material list, which looks just like this. There's only 6 support materials here. I'll talk about those. So the first one, again, is the applicant's short bio and resume. You want to show that this person is an excellent and experienced teaching artist that has a past history of working. So they've included their bio in the resume. A letter of support from Warwick Library saying that they are donating space in kind and this program is happening. Then I have lesson plans for each session, including the imagination prompts to be used. This, again, helps with the feasibility and likelihood of success because I'm showing that I've done the planning, I know what a lesson plan needs to look like, and it already exists. So the panel can really look and see what the content of these making days is going to be. And then my 4th support material is a photo collage. It's 3 pages and I've saved it as a PDF of the applicant and former students working together, including the student work from past teaching artist projects. Support material 5 is a letter of support from the primary caretaker of a student that participated in past projects that I've done teaching artist work for. So somebody who's come to my classes before, their caregiver wrote a letter of support about why this person is an excellent teaching artist and how the experience was and why it's valuable. And then support material 6 is a 2-page, let's say 2-page PDF of photographs and descriptions of the applicant's artwork on their own. So they're a teaching artist, but they're also an artist, and it's showing some of their work. So that's what I've chosen to put in the support materials for a community engaged project grant of this nature. And then again, we have the who are your elected officials and these assurances that are saying, yes, I am for real here, and I'm telling the truth. And then again, I'm going to save the application because I'm not ready to submit, but I want all of my changes to be saved. And there you go. That is the applications for the Make Art Grant and the Community Engaged Project Grant. Questions. All right, I'm seeing that doing a reading with rehearsals involves only the actors and audience is not community engagement. That's correct, but it probably would be, it might be a Make Art Grant. Is it for a new, are you writing a new script? Is it for something new? I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, I still can't hear you. My Zoom is being weird.
Right.
Make an appointment with me, but if you're workshopping a new piece and you need to do a reading of it, that okay, it's already written. So yeah, there's not a great place to apply for a grant supporting that. You could include a talkback or something like that. That might make it a little bit more of a community engaged project grant. We can talk about it. Make an appointment with me.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, I'm going to put some links in the chat, and all of these links will also be in the follow-up email that you all will receive tomorrow. It will not be today. This first link is that Eventbrite collection that has all of the upcoming grant workshops and drop-in support hours. The second link is, again, that YouTube playlist that includes the budget video, but it also includes recordings of all of our grant workshops. Here is my, and I showed you where to get to, how to get to this link on our website, but here is the link to schedule a one-on-one meeting with me. And then here is RISCA's website, which is just arts.ri.gov. All right, I think that's it. So thank you all for coming to the Community Engaged Project Grant and Make Art Grant application walkthrough. And stop recording, and then Sylvia, I'll answer your question. Thank you all.